The way is made, the price is paid, and love is what you will find if you give it all. If you give your everything, you'll find yourself surrounded with so much more. If you break down the walls that surround the quiet voice within, you'll open up the door to so much more than what you had before you gave it all. Love will lead you all the way to the life you really want. It's such a small price to pay if you give it all. If you give your everything, you'll find yourself surrounded with so much more. If you break down the walls and listen to the voice within, you'll open up the door to ever so much more than what you had before you gave it all.
We're in that season of gratitude, and the month topic is about financial wholeness. Anybody feel that with me? So we're going to talk about the grateful heart, because it actually all goes together. A grateful heart sets the foundation that leads to a consciousness of prosperity. It is the beginning of the circle of giving and receiving, and giving from a joyful and grateful heart, being in service without any thought of return, will multiply the gift and bless both the recipient and the giver. And being grateful for all we have all the time without cause is what increases our good in the world. Being grateful for what we receive sometimes creates guilt. I was taught not to receive when I was a child, that it's not good to take things or even receive things from people. That kind of sets up a block, doesn't it? And so that will be part of our little story today. Giving in service without something for return, or something in return, is real different for a lot of people, because they only want to give if they get something back, because they believe that's the cycle and the circle. And it can be, but let's look at the consciousness around that. So we want to talk about being grateful for everything, actually, in the moment, and grateful for what we have. I want to start with a quote from Eric Butterworth. Some persons, realizing the importance of the grateful heart, begin looking for things for which to give thanks. However, they mistakenly start with the perspective of inadequacy and insufficiency, and thus they simply become more conscious of limitations. You see, when you look for things out there to be grateful for, you're actually not looking at all for what's inside and from what the source is. We might think, oh, okay, so what happened today and what can I be grateful for? Or what's happening at the moment? Who is around me that I can be grateful for? Let me see. Well, when we do that, we're starting from a point of emptiness, because we're looking out there for something to be grateful for. And that is actually coming from a consciousness of lack. Ernest Holmes says, there must be a conscious belief in the part of those seeking to demonstrate this principle that their faith and thought are but the avenues through which the law expresses itself to them. Let me put that in today's language. If you must be grateful you must have a grateful and abundant consciousness of God to express, so that it can express itself through you and your life will become the good that it is. So you have to have that consciousness of good first, and then things open up to show up for you. Eric Butterworth again says, you do not need something to be grateful for. You need only the desire to feel grateful. Invoke Plato's law. When you feel grateful, you become great, and eventually great things come to you. Butterworth says again that being grateful is a causative energy. And Dr. Holmes says that a feeling, organized and directed, is intelligent creation. How about that? When the mind is left to wander, it'll tend to revert to the dominant negative polarity. By focusing on gratitude, you are directing the mind to positive thought. So when we focus and commit our energy, our thought, into being grateful for all things, we're creating that powerful energy of consciousness. So let me say that sentence again, because it's powerful. Being grateful is a causative energy. Okay? It has its own life. And feeling, organized and directed, is intelligent creation. We teach in practitioner training or even in foundations that thought plus feeling equals the demonstration. So when we look at the feeling part of it, feeling, organized and directed, is intelligent creation. Okay. So Dr. Holmes and Eric Butterworth both teach that same principle, and they teach that we all know that God is our source of life, and God is good, and God is abundant. And that with God, abundance is already present, so if it's present in God, it's present in us. So our only prayer really needs to be that of gratitude. Step 4 of our spiritual mind treatment is the gratitude step. We are grateful right then and there in the moment that what we have desired or asked for or claimed in our treatment is already done. And that brings power and presence to that spiritual mind treatment. And so, is it always about money or only about money if we're talking about prosperity and abundance? Actually, no. It's everything. But there is that famous movie that with Tom, what's his name?
Show me the money.
Show me the money, that's right. Yeah, so some think that money will solve everything, and it's the only thing. And how about those infomercials in the middle of the night? Become a millionaire and change your life. Well, that guy's a millionaire because he's got people sending him money, right? He's got it. But it's not just about the money. Money is something people have decided to use to exchange for other things in this third dimensional reality. And unfortunately, our culture has taught us that money is the thing you have to have. You have to have lots of money to have an effective life. Money is status. Money is importance. We need money to take care of ourselves and take care of the world and to show the neighbors what's going on, right? I read something really interesting today. I'm not sure where I read this or what it was, but it was about people who win the lottery. People who win the lottery have the highest statistic of neighbors that file bankruptcy. Because it's that old thing, like, you got to keep up with the Joneses, that when someone wins the lottery and they start accumulating toys in front of their house with cars and boats and all that kind of stuff, that their neighbors try to keep up. I'm not sure how they came up with a statistic like that or discovered that, but they have the highest rate of neighbors that file bankruptcy. Okay, so that's an interesting little addition to that. Where is their consciousness in that? Okay. In my preparation for this talk today, gosh, I read so many things, but I ran into some wonderful information from Lloyd Strom, who is on the sacreddays.org website, and his explanation of a particular quote from Charles Fillmore, who started Unity Church. So I'm going to share with you what I learned about that. And here's the quote. It's very simple, but it's really powerful. There is no reality in lack. It's not a person, place, or thing, right? There is no reality in lack. Abundance is manifest here and now, awaiting our awareness of it. That's it. I like that. Because we can say, yes, I know that. That's what I learned. But how many people have well, just kind of an experience of life that might quite not be that. So we all kind of go through those times. So what is our awareness about that? Well, let me first break that down just a little bit. Lack is defined as deficiency, wanting, or absence. To be without what is needed. What is need? Need is a lack of something necessary or desirable. But actually, desire is an energy that reaches into the future. It's something you're hoping for, wanting, or waiting to come to you. So lack and need have a very interesting relationship, and they really work on our consciousness and our subconsciousness. Lack is actually an experience of the past. So I'm going to work this through with you in a couple steps. You don't have an experience of lack or an awareness of an insufficiency of something until you've reached a certain point of need, and then you realize that need was not fulfilled, and then you experience lack. Does it make sense? So let's take rent, for example. We love rent. We love mortgages. I am grateful for everything in my life. So we'll take rent. So all month you're saving and saving for the rent until the day the rent is due. And during the month, you really can't say you don't have enough money to pay the rent because the due date hasn't showed up yet, right? That's in the future. So you say you need the money for the rent. And at the moment, you're in need. For all of those days leading up to the day the rent is due, you're actually putting yourself in a consciousness of need and being needy, because you're waiting for that to come. So the due date arrives for the rent, and you still don't have the money. And then you experience lack. See how that works like that? Need is moving into the future. I need my money. I need the money to pay the rent. Due date comes, and all of a sudden there wasn't enough money. And it may not be rent. It might be something else. But then it's like, oh, I don't have it. I can't pay it. And that's when you experience the lack. And so having that experience may cause you to think about that again in the future for something else. It may happen again, and possibly again and again, that I don't have what I need. And every time that happens, in that moment, a belief is being created. You're believing that there'll be lack in the future, and that creates even a deeper experience of need. And need, remember, is another word for wishing and hoping for something to come. So need is defined as future lack. And so what happens when you have that experience over and over again with that thought in your head that there may not be enough, you begin setting up lack for future dates, even created it when it hasn't even shown up yet. So over time, the more we do that, we develop this deeper belief in lack and a greater and deeper belief. And the deeper that is, the deeper more need you have in the future. So it creates this cycle that then begins to snowball. Our culture deals with lack through acquisition. We begin to collect things. Oh, look at all the stuff out there. I'm a pack rat. So this is an interesting story for me. I'm not a hoarder, although some of my friends who keep their counters clean will tell me I am. But it's not something I learned how to do as a child. I'm flat surface challenged. Is that what you call that? It's like, I'll say that, but I'll tell you a funny story for just a moment, because I do like things in piles. And so Lana Karen's book on how to organize according to your brain, I'm the one who wants piles. And so she says to decorate boxes so you can put them in. Okay, so they're piles. But I know it's in every pile and every box. So I used to have this job. I used to work for a construction supply company, actually. And it was a fun job. It was brainless. And I drove around and I loved it. But I made like $8 an hour. So, but I was happy. I really liked it. So I would go into these places waiting for my little supply of screws and nuts and bolts and all those kinds of things. And I would stand at the counter and it'd be messy. And I would be putting all these papers like this. And I'd go like this. Not knowing that anybody ever watched me. I'm just like, And one day I go into this place that's way out on 21st South, 5200, just way out there. And I go in and the cabinet doors are open on the around the thing, and these papers are messed up. I'm like, wow. So I'm waiting for my order, and I start doing this, and I'm putting everything neatly in the pile so all the corners go together, and I'm closing the doors, and then I hear this roar of laughter. And they had set me up because they really knew that this just was one of my things. All right, now I forget where I was. Okay, so our culture wants us to, save and collect through acquisition. And we think that if we collect things, we'll take care of the future, because what if we collect this or save this or keep this because we just might need it in the future? So we've already set up an open pathway of need, right? So, and what are we doing that from? We're doing it from fear. We're saving and collecting of fear. And the longer we hold on to the belief of future need, again, the deeper that belief gets, creating a bigger need. So we save and collect from the problem, from the consciousness of lack. Have you heard of the law of correspondence? Okay. Then the definition we've heard, for some who haven't heard quite that, the world corresponds to our thoughts. It's very simple. As within, so without, as above, so below. So the deeper our belief in need, resulting in lack, the bigger our need will be in the future, because there has to be a correlation. So, we're not making it up. At the same time around this, what are we doing? We're placing our belief in need and the fixing of that need in physical form. We're placing our faith in things of form, and things of form can go away. So how do we look at that differently? Let's shift the talk now to the other side of the coin. Jesus says in Matthew 6:19, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So that's been translated a couple different ways. It doesn't mean when you die, that's when you get all the fun and treasures. Through our teaching, we know that our consciousness and heaven is right here, right now. So we have our treasures with us right here. Lay up your treasures in heaven, right here, right now. And this is our abundance. We build our consciousness of abundance by knowing we have everything right here, that we're not in lack and we're not in need. Abundance is the truth of our lives, and it is awaiting our awareness of it. But we can't fully release our belief in lack until we have actually fully committed ourselves to the awareness of abundance as our truth. Sometimes we think, well, that'll get better, but I just have to fix this first. Actually, we have to commit first to the truth of abundance. And that's how we let go of lack. The consciousness of lack. And so what is abundance? A plentiful amount, fullness to overflowing, and affluence. Florence Scovel Shinn says that abundance is all around us, and it presses itself against us, just trying to get our attention. It's our awareness. It is our belief in lack is the only thing that keeps us from noticing that. Emma Curtis Hopkins says, "God is my good is God." I love Emma. And I loved learning that in my classwork about her. I think she was fabulous. She's a little hard to understand, but I love her. God is my good is God. And we can all agree, hopefully, with you, that God is good and abundant. And in our Science of Mind teaching, we're taught that God is always and only abundance. He didn't teach that there was abundance and lack. Not two separate things, not duality. He taught the opposite, that there is one life, and that life is God, that life is good, that life is my life now. So therefore, abundance is already present with me, and it's awaiting my awareness of it. But not until we release this whole idea of lack. And what if lack is not really the opposite of abundance? I think in my silly little mind sometimes when you play those games, what is the opposite? So what's the opposite of lack? It's abundance. Well, what if it's not? What if lack is really what we have imagined it would be like if God was not abundant. Kind of a different way to word that. But if God is omnipresent, everywhere, present at the same time, and God is abundant, then abundance is omnipresent and everywhere. That's not separate. The only thing that blocks it is our belief in what it is. Lloyd Strom puts it this way. He says that lack is actually a false belief regarding the abundant nature of God. So somewhere in our upbringing and in our environment, we were taught that either God was not abundant, or that we were separate from it and couldn't have it, or maybe you were even taught that it didn't even exist. And what choice at that point did you have but to play it out over and over and over, unconsciously? When I was little, I would ask my mom for a toy or for something, and as a child, I took her response to me as anger. Anger for even asking. And her words, which were always, "Do you see money out there hanging on that tree in the backyard?" That was her response. I'm not sure I quite understood. Although there was something about a money tree, and I thought if there was a money tree, then yeah. But that was not it. She would get pretty upset. And as an adult, and now a follower of Science of Mind, what I really saw was her frustration and her sadness and her pain in the belief of lack and not knowing what to do about that. No way out. And I have to say as a little side note that as I had that memory come up, and it's doing it again, I have a visceral response because that's what the training was for us, that there was no money and there was no way out. And I actually cried with compassion for my mom and for my family and what life was like back then. And it tells me a lot that I still have healing to do around money and around abundance and around this whole family line, because we get into these patterns with our families about different issues and different things. I know lots of people who have no issues whatsoever with money and abundance, but they have other issues and other stories. So we have these family patterns that we grow up with. A devotee of Yogananda said that the true definition of wealth was the riches of well-being. It's not about the stuff. It's the riches of well-being. And when we build our consciousness around good and the fullness of all the things, then our well-being in the body of our affairs is in abundance. Remember a few minutes ago I introduced the law of correspondence. And so as within, so without, as above, so below. All is one. And the spiritual world feeds our material world. When we, in this New Thought philosophy, we talk about the connection of that things start in the spiritual world first. The idea of what we are, what we do, and even things that come into our life, we've got that in the spiritual world first, and then it comes into form. And the material world and the spiritual world work together. And so a spiritual world feeds the material world, and when our own material world of abundance and wealth is in display, it shows us what we really believe about our own spiritual world, because that is in a direct correlation. Does that make sense? Got that? So if we experience lack in our material world, then we don't believe the spiritual world is abundant, or we could have our own thought in a place of duality, that it just isn't ours to have, but it's for someone else. So we have to look at where we are with that. Okay, next step, where do we go? Gratitude. We develop a consciousness of gratitude, living from a grateful heart. Gratitude is the principle that heals lack. Our culture teaches that we're to be grateful when help comes to alleviate the need or the lack. But the belief itself has not changed. So the symptom's been cured for the moment, but the condition still looms. The thought is still there. So what's in our thought and consciousness is what continues this cycle, and that's what has to change. So we learn to cultivate an attitude of gratitude. The thought, the feeling of gratitude consistently for everything as it already is, without judgment. Without judgment. And that's what builds our abundant and grateful consciousness. So the law of gratitude is that whatever you're grateful for will increase. We always say that where you put your focus is what expands. So if your focus is a focus of gratitude for everything that is and everything that's going on all the time, then that's what your focus is, and your good increases. So it's not just about making your gratitude list in the morning or making your gratitude list just at night. But what if you're in a grateful thought all day long? We'd be grateful for everything, big and small, even if you weren't happy with it, because somehow it has showed up in your life and your awareness for a reason, right? Sometimes the hard part. But that's what we have to do. Gratitude will heal all the events of your life, actually. Chuck Spezzano, he's an author, PhD, and visionary, says that our ego and lower mind will do what it can to keep us in separation and brings up the stories from our past and the pain to keep the old beliefs of lack and poverty rotating and controlling us in order to build itself. That's the work of the ego. But the higher mind enlightens with gratitude. It heals, it opens, and the truth of oneness with spirit is able to be freer in our mind and thought and to bring us to our good, to bring us together with our good, and to heal as well. Because when we're in that negative thought, which is what the ego wants us to do, we're keeping the old cycles and patterns and pain active. Yeah, that's big. Sometimes when we're I've been in places and in classes and stuff when we really work on this consciousness thing and you've really kind of got it, we hear people say, you know what, my paycheck hasn't changed, but somehow, wow, everything's falling into alignment and it goes so much further, it's so cool. And it's not just the money, that's a nice one, but things start showing up. In our practitioner class, we start the class with unexpected abundance. And so we let people go around the room and share what has shown up for them during the week. Gifts or meals or a raise or just different things, or a free turkey. Unexpected abundance. Because when we're in that place of good and gratitude, we are brought right to our good. So take a breath. Just breathe. Take in that abundance of air and that just big internal space. Okay. So here's your charge for the week. But actually it's not for 1 week, it's for 3 weeks. Okay? 21 days. For 21 days, can you live from a grateful heart? To think only of gratitude and positive thoughts, no negative thoughts. When the mind is left to wander, it will tend to revert to a dominant negativity polarity. So, by focusing on gratitude, you're directing the mind to think positive thoughts. The positive and emotional attitudes expressed by focusing on gratitude draws us towards a state of balance. Okay? So at the end of the day, you might review and assess how you did, and if you had any slip-ups, the only thing you have to do is love yourself more. Be grateful for the day, be grateful for the process, and claim God's continual love and forgiveness for you. We've all done those programs where you had to do something for 21 days, and if you messed up, you had to start over again. That sounds like punishment to me. This is not about punishment. Gratitude is not about punishment. So if you mess up, just love yourself. Be grateful for the process. Be grateful for how things are expanding and growing. And just remember that God loves you. Spirit loves you no matter what. So for 21 days, you do that process. And then you just go to sleep. And you sleep well knowing that the next day, you will think only positive, grateful thoughts. And it will be a good day. Can you do that? Yes, that's an easy one. So, bless you. So I'd like to take this into prayer and I'd like to invite up our practitioners. And I would like to also invite our prac students if they would like to come. We have 3 prac students. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to first show our sacred covenant easy prayer for our new minister. The words should be on the screen. Thank you. We're going to read it together, and I'm going to ask you to stand to read this. Because when we stand, when we activate our physical body with sacred words, the soul is activated and engaged. So I invite you to stand for that. And we'll read this together, and when it's done, then I will do a short affirmative prayer to ground today's message. So let's begin. There is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. And this life is my life now. In knowing I am one with this life that is God, I therefore know I am one with all of its blessed expressions. In the presence of a new minister for my beloved spiritual community. Because I know the highest purpose of my new minister is to glorify God, I therefore know my new minister is a revelation of God as love. I further know my new minister is the fulfillment of that which is promised by God. For it is written, love points the way, the law makes the way possible. Love is harmonious, vital, and complete. As I stand in agreement with my beloved community, I see my new minister revealed before me as living and celebrating the power of love. I now intend to experience my new minister in full cooperation and agreement with my community, knowing this truth about myself. For I am centered in spirit, grounded in principle, and I am an authentic, engaging, inspiring communicator. I am awakened to and inspired by the wisdom within me. I am compassionately applying principles, revealing wholeness. I am fully embodying spirit as source and living principle generously. I am experiencing a direct connection with the divine and revealing its relevance in the world today through mystical teachings. As I now accept the highest expression of a new minister into my life, I know it is revealed in a way that glorifies God and serves the highest and greatest good of all who are touched by their presence. I am grateful God is gracious. Amen. And so it is. And so recognizing this goodness and gratitude that it is the healing of the universe and it is the energy that makes the universe move, I am grateful for this moment. I recognize that every individual in this room is an individuation of God, the omnipresence of abundance and prosperity and well-being, that perfect wealth of God. And so I give thanks for that. And I know that every word of this prayer and of this moment is grounded in absolute divine love and gratitude. And so it is easy to move forward knowing the gratitude and grace surrounds me every moment of this day. I am spirit, having a human experience, and as much as I welcome those qualities that I attribute to spirit, as I express them in my daily life, they are reflected back to me. I increase all forms of prosperity daily. I release my belief in lack. I release all my needs, for I am grateful God is the wealth I am. And with great joy and gratitude, I release that into the law, knowing it is done right here, right now. And together we say, and so it is.